Good morning, Bitcoiners. This is Daniel from the Bitcoin Citadel, episode 56 of Citadel Summer. And today is Simulation Sunday, my favorite day of the week for the show. And today I promised I would talk about the Phoenix, and I'm going to, but I want to do a little intro first. Yesterday's show actually was kind of an intro to today's show. The whole World War II consensus versus Nakamoto consensus. Kind of the punishment reward system that we're moving away from and moving into. In the Bitcoin, the Nakamoto consensus, it's really all about things are going to be organized around Bitcoin, right? Who has the Bitcoin? And a lot of the things that the World War II consensus required of you, right? That you had to believe in the Big Bang Theory and evolution, and you had to dress a certain way, and you had to at least publicly espouse certain ideas, right? You had to be a part of the mainstream and the foundational ideas of the World War II consensus. Nazis are bad. Communists are bad. Russia is the adversary of the United States. Capitalism is good. Crony capitalism is good. We can ignore all this other stuff, but because we're fighting this fight and we have to we have to do it that way. We know it's not ideal, but we got to do it that way because of the World War II consensus narrative, right? All that stuff is ending. And the cool part about it is that a lot of the things that you couldn't think when I was a kid, because I was born in the early 60s. I think the World War II consensus, was forged in the 50s, right? And 1963, oh boy, I hope it's still a good shot. My whole camera rig fell over there. But this is a one-take show, so we're going to keep on going on. Kennedy's killed in 63, right? If you believe the fourth turning narrative, then that was a change. That was a watershed moment, and we're going through these cycles. And I believe in cycles too. There's cycles in the sovereign individual, 500-year cycles, right? So as time has gone on and as the World War II consensus has fallen apart, and we have this new Nakamoto consensus, the thing I like about the Nakamoto consensus is as long as we agree about Bitcoin, right? As long as the Bitcoin network is running, as long as the sun comes up, right? We don't have to have the same ideas about everything. If you follow me on X, you see that I post a lot. I have my catchphrases, I have a bunch of them. I say farmers are natural Bitcoiners, right? I say ranchers are natural Bitcoiners. Permaculturists are natural Bitcoiners. The Amish are natural Bitcoiners. I could say truthers are natural Bitcoiners, right? Because they have Bitcoin is going to be the flywheel that can help them to do these things, right? I like to think of it, I say the Amish are natural Bitcoiners, but for those who are thoughtful and perceptive, what I might really be saying is, if you flip it on its head, Bitcoiners are natural Amish. Not Amish in that we have to follow the religious dictates of the Amish people, but we can see that there's a framework there. When you can get 100 dudes to get together and 100 gals to get together and all of their families, and you build a barn in a weekend, right, with all of the people working together, and the women are making the food, right? The men are building the barn, right? And this is like organized, almost like a self-organized. It's almost like what do they call those things? Flash mob, right? It's like the Amish flash mob, and all of a sudden you got a frickin' barn built, right? There's something there, right? And I think that those folks could use Bitcoin, and it would be even better, right? And I think the truther community is the same way. And the reason I bring the truther community up is the way that I got into simulation is my mind was freed enough by Bitcoin. If you had asked me 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, what I thought about, ontologically, what is the world? What is this place? How did it originate? What's the origin story of the universe? I would have said, oh well, it started with a big bang billions of years ago, right? And everything started from there, and it's all played out in a very, mechanistic, deterministic fashion since then. And we can use our science to get all the way back, everything we can track all the way back right to just before the Big Bang. The Big Bang no one can really explain that. That's kind of a freebie, you get one whopper at every system. That's what I like to say, right? You get one thing that you just got to accept on faith. And in that version of science, that was it. So there was this uniformitarian model that starts way back billions of years ago. And every now and then you'd hear about, Christian people and other religious nuts, right? That in the World War II consensus, they're nuts, who would say that the world only started 6,000 years ago. And we would laugh about that. That was a laughable thing to me, right? And I had one of my brother-in-law who would talk about the Nephilim and giants and all of these ideas, and I would literally laugh, and I would think to myself that this person is touched in the head, right? Now here I am, right? And I'm talking to you about simulation theory and a particular version of it. And I like, I've done a fairly deep dive into this since I started to be interested in it. And you guys know my favorite, the most entertaining and the most consistent version of it that I like is the one that Jason Brashears came up with. And he came at it from reading old books while he was in Texas prison for 26 years, trying to prove that the Bible is true. And what he wound up landing on is simulation theory. But his simulation theory is a rigorous theory. He doesn't practice exclusions, right? He says everything has to be explainable by this theory. And if you look at other theories of ontology, other ontological systems, they always leave stuff out, right? That there is as thin as tissue paper, a lot of them, right? Well, his isn't like that. That's why I like it. And in his theory, it's very similar to the Christians who say, back in the 80s when we laughed at Jerry Falwell and these Christians who said, the world is 6,000 years old. Guess what? His system starts in the year 1, Ano Mundi, the Adam and Eve event, right? He doesn't say the world was created by that event. What he says is it was a systemic reset. And the protocol in the simulation is like a computer program. It's governed by protocols. It's created by this. It's the way we think of it now, because we can build video games and we can build these things that are like a simulation, like a world, right? Like a universe in a box. And they're built by computers running code using protocols and algorithms. Well, in Jason's version of this simulation, the beginning is the year 1, Ano Mundi. No one has any records. There's no written records that can describe anything before then, right? So all this speculation about ice ages and the Big Bang and all of that stuff is really nothing more than speculation supported by the experts in science, right? The Adam and Eve reset is talked about in the Bible, right, as the year one, Annus Mundi, the first year of the world. And he says it's a reset. It's not a new heavens. It's not a new world. It's not the creation of the world from nothing like a big bang. It's a reset. It's a new heaven and a new earth, right? And the cool thing, one of the things really entertaining me about it that I like is that before then, the world is the world we're living in now, right? The world we're living in now that we're coming to the end of. And I believe that the end date, the Adam and Eve reset date in this timeline is 2106, a Phoenix year, right? But there's some big Phoenix events that are going to happen real soon. And one of them is in 2040. The Phoenix is the reset protocol, right? This great bird that rises from the ashes, right, is the symbol of this reset. It's not always a bird. The thunderbird, the Fenris wolf, Typhon, Tiamat, these are all the same. They're the same thing casts these shadows on the wall, if we're using the Plato's cave analogy. And this thing, which Jason calls the Phoenix protocol, the Phoenix, casts that shadow. So what is the Phoenix? What are the characteristics of it? Well, the characteristics of the Phoenix is that it happens every 138 years. Oops. Jeez. That's two in one show. My Phoenix show, right? My Simulation Sunday. The simulation is against me today. So, every 138 years, the Phoenix protocol in this simulation is executed, beginning from the year one Annus Mundi. And it's a reset protocol, right? Things change profoundly every 138 years. And not every 138 years is there a great cataclysm, but that's part of the protocol, right? So the first one, back when in the Adam and Eve reset, I can't remember the date off the top of my head, around 4000 BC. Jason has an exact date for it and a lot of supporting evidence to back it up, right? So that event occurs. In the books, in history, there are certain time periods that relate to the Phoenix. They're all multiples of 138. One of them is the 414-year period, and that's called a cursed Earth period. And another one is a 552-year period, and that is another. In the ancient times, this Phoenix cycle was 552 years long, and if you do the math and you count from the Adam and Eve event, almost 4,000 years ago, year one Annus Mundi, and you play it forward, there have been cataclysms on that 552-year timeline, like every single time, right? There was the flood of Noah, which happened, 12 times 138, or 3 552-year cycles after the Adam and Eve reset, right? So the day the sky fell, when the earth flooded, right? This cataclysm that we relate to Noah in the Bible, the Christian Bible, and in the Old Testament, right, was one of these Phoenix events. It was, 1656 years after the Adam and Eve reset. Another 552 years after that, there was a major event called the Ogaijan Deluge. Look it up, right? And, well, let's roll it back a tiny bit. So the Phoenix is this protocol that resets the simulation every 138 years. And every 552 years, there's a whopper, right, that comes and resets the system. And on a reset like the flood of Noah, or like the Adam and Eve reset was the biggest one ever. Flood of Noah was pretty damn big though, right? The In Jason's simulation, the whole narrative about ice ages and uniformitarianism doesn't play out. If you think about how did the North Pole and the South Pole get all that snow and ice, right? It doesn't snow when it's as cold as it is at the North Pole and the South Pole. If you go to the North Pole or the South Pole, it doesn't snow up there. It's like a desert up there, right? How did all that snow build up? Even given, a 1,000,000-year time frame. It hasn't even been 1,000,000 years, right? But given that time frame, how did it build up? No one can explain that in science. The Ice Age people can't even explain that, right? Well, Jason's research, reading those old books, indicates that before the flood of Noah, there was a vapor canopy around the world, like Venus, right? Venus is covered by a vapor canopy. In that pre-flood world, during the day, the sun was not visible because it was like some mornings out here. I come in, there's a the whole sky is filled with fog, right? It's a misty vapor canopy world. That's what it looks like anyway to us, right? And that's what the whole world was. There was there still is a mesosphere above the world where there's a lot of moisture, but in a vapor canopy world, the phoenix triggers volcanoes. The pressure of the air goes up, right? Like in Venus, the air pressure is much more than it is here. So we have water in the mesosphere. We have during the day we have clouds between us and the sky. You can't see the sun during the day. It's nothing but a cloudy, maybe you see the sun like, you don't even see it, right? The sun is up because it brightens up, right? And the sky fills with this, mist, this vapor canopy becomes opaque. At night, all of the like the manna from heaven, the vapor canopy mistily falls to the ground. The sky opens up, and that's one of the explanations for how people could see knew so much about the sky in ancient times when they didn't have telescopes, right? So this vapor canopy thing is going on, right? In ancient times. And the phoenix is what triggers vapor canopies to be formed, and it's big phoenix events like the flood of Noah. And in the flood of Noah, the sky fell. So the phoenix triggers the creation of vapor canopies, and it also can reset them so that the sky falls, right? And all of the water that's in the sky comes to the earth, and that's how the ice caps, the northern and southern ice caps, are formed. When the vapor canopy it's a vapor canopy world, that's when we have giants, right? The radiation of the world, the oxygen pressure, the carbon dioxide, the atmosphere is much richer in these things, and humans and animals grow to giant sizes, right? When the vapor canopy falls. And if you read, look at Jason's channel, dude, when he talks about giants and about vapor canopies and about the phoenix, and you'll get more information about it, right? Just suspend your disbelief for now if you're interested. It's very entertaining, and it's very informative too. It's a good way to counter program your brain from the World War II consensus bullshit that you've been fed your entire life. In this model, you are the protagonist. You're not an insignificant person who lives once and dies, right, on an insignificant speck in a huge infinite universe, right? That's part of the psyop, right? That's part of the psyop. That's one of the things I love about Jason's simulation theory, is that we're all immortals that are here in this simulation to forge our souls. And when we beat the big boss in this one, we can move on to another one that's even more challenging, even more beautiful, and even more rewarding, right? We're sojourners here, right? That's what we are. And we have to learn how to treat each other right, how to forge our souls so that we can move on to the next level. That's where we are now in the program too. The ouroboros is got its its tail in its own mouth, and we're reaching that part of the timeline. We're circling around, and 2040 is the next big Phoenix event. And here I am rambling. I'm trying to do this in 20 minutes. Jason has hundreds of hours of videos about it. So the next big Phoenix event on the 138-year timeline is in 2040. And this is going to be a big one. I think what Jason says about this one is it's going to mostly affect Asia. That's the place that's going to be hit the hardest in the 2040 reset, the Phoenix reset of 2040. And that's the reset event, one of the reset events, because there's actually a whole nother timeline, a 792-year timeline that does resets as well. And both of them are going to happen. The Phoenix event is 2040, and the Nibiru or Nemesis X event is in 2046. So we're going to get a 1-2 punch in 6 years, and that's really going to be a big one, right? That's what was written about in the book of Revelations, which became a Christian document, but really is an ancient document that goes way back to Sumer, and maybe even predates that. In Jason's first book, The Lost Scriptures of Giza, he says that the pyramids were covered with white limestone casing blocks, and they were pillars, right? And they were on them, written in the ancient language, was all of the knowledge of the world, and all of the great religious texts that we have now were basically came from what was written on the pyramids. What Abraham actually did is he went back and he could still read that ancient language, and he, because the pyramids were built before the flood, my friend, right? So pyramids are built, flood happens, the pyramids are underwater, or they're islands, right, in the water for a long time. They dry out. Giza Plateau is raised back up. The raised land is one of the names for the Giza Plateau. And people can see the writing on the wall, right? Literally, the writing on the wall, and they write that shit down, and that's the source material for all of the great writings of religion, the perennial philosophy from then on forward, and it only gets corrupted as time moves forward, but that's the basis of it. Lost Scriptures of Giza is a great book. The pyramid and Bitcoin are the two greatest technologies ever created in my mind. You should read Jason's book. And the Phoenix, the pyramid is the Phoenix cycle encoded into stone. The pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Giza, is one of the most interesting artifacts in the simulation, and it's a very, very powerful story written in stone, and a technology that we don't really, we couldn't create that now. There's no way. Our technology doesn't exist for that. So it's evidence that a advanced society, technologically advanced society, existed in the deep ancient past. And if you listen to Jason, it's like, it's our society now. It's going to get more and more advanced, right? And then it's going to be reset, right? So an advanced society existed in our past, and our past is our future in this simulation. We're living in an ouroboros. That's the shape of the simulation. And the Phoenix is really the timekeeper. Every 138 years, there's a reset. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're not. The one in 2040, if you believe the old books, and you can match up the old books to the timeline we're in now, we're actually in the second seal of the book of Revelations, the time that peace is removed from the earth by the rider on the fiery horse, and small arms widely spread. Fire and knives are the two characteristics. And is that happening now? I don't know. Take a look. Maybe you can see that, right? And as I said, I think it was the last simulation Sunday, the next seal is the black rider with the balance, right? With the scales. And that rider, I haven't heard Jason's decode on that one yet, but traditionally, that rider is the rider called famine, right? And you can see famine in this cycle. There's always this is me, this isn't Jason. I think there's always a preview of coming attractions in each each seal, each Olympiad, each 4-year period, because the seals are 4-year periods. COVID was 4 years starting in 2020. This second seal, piece removed from the earth, small arms, knives in particular, machetes, knives, rioting, fire, started in 2024. The next one starts in 2028, and that's the one characterized by the Black Rider, right? So, the preview of coming attractions is the famine in Gaza right now. That's my feeling about it. The Phoenix 2024. What does it mean for Bitcoiners? Look at Jason's channel. Maybe I'll find. I'll try to find the baby Phoenix videos. He has a whole Phoenix playlist, right? And I think he has some videos for people who are interested in the Phoenix and want to get, you're entertained by it like me, right? And it's compelling. Intellectually, right? Because the whole system, as Bitcoiners, we know we didn't know the whole system was corrupt and bullshit, but we knew at least one piece of it was, right? And if you're like me and you have, you're part of the Nakamoto consensus, and all you really care about is that someone is a good person and they're into Bitcoin, and then I can talk to them. I can entertain their ideas. Maybe you'll like Jason's ideas, right? I think Jason would be a natural Bitcoiner, but he's not. He hasn't been orange pilled yet. So Phoenix event 2040. What does that mean to Bitcoiners? Well, one of the things that it's going to do is it's going to knock down the system that Bitcoin runs on. I hate to tell you, right? The computer internet that we have now, the electrical grid that we have now, is going to be knocked out by the 2040 event. I'm not saying it's not going to come back on. I'm not saying it's down for good, but that event is going to be cataclysmic. It is, right? So what can we as Bitcoiners do for the next 15 years? Well, we can prepare for that event. We can, if you guys are, want to do it, you can try to make systems, you can make an internet that can survive that kind of event, right? You can surround yourself with a community of people that is prepared for that kind of event. And actually, one of the cool things about it is if you ask Jason about it, he said, are you preparing for the event? What are you going to do? He goes, I don't even worry about it. I don't worry about it because the nature of the simulation is such that what you resist persists, right? If he has a whole concept of negative default programming, and that's, it's an energy system in the simulation to get people to believe the same thing. So it's easy to guide them. It's easy to, it doesn't take a lot of energy, a lot of power in the simulation to support those people in the simulation. So a lot of people are NPCs, really. I mean, Bitcoiners are in a way NPCs because all we do is we focus on Bitcoin, right? All of our time and energy goes into Bitcoin and thinking about it. And Bitcoiners are easy to wrangle that way. We just put videos up about Bitcoin. We have, our focus is completely on Bitcoin. And I think that that's fine and that's fun. And that it's a good way to open your mind and to become a free person. Bitcoin is freedom money, but it's not the end game. And I'm rambling and, going on all over the place. But the point of the Great Awakening, the point of the apocalypse, the point of revelation is not Bitcoin. It is freedom. It is opening your eyes. But as I've said before, and I could be wrong, this is me here in 2025 in the second seal of the revelation of the Great Awakening, a Bitcoiner, right? This is me saying, I think the game is, the revelation is, you are an immortal soul. This is a simulation. Your body belongs to the construct, but your soul belongs to you. And when you die, it's not all over, right? The black pill, that's one of the greatest tools of the enemy is the black pill, and the idea that you only live once, and That is part of the World War II consensus and a lot of the consensuses that we've had before, right? And I think that is the key point of what we're going through now, of this revelation, of this apocalypse, is understanding that key feature. And to the extent that Bitcoin distracts you from that, you're losing the game, right? To the extent that Bitcoin can allow you to think those thoughts, right? And still be someone who can, in this punishment and reward, this predator-prey ecosystem, can still participate in society and not be laughed off as a crazy person, still contribute and add value to the world in a meaningful way, and still be treated as a valuable member of society, even if you have these ideas that are outside, that never would have flown in the World War II consensus. They're okay in the Nakamoto consensus, right? If you're bringing value to society, you're a moral and ethical person, right? You're not trampling on other people's rights, privileges, and immunities. You're good. You're cool. You don't have to agree with me about everything. You don't have to think that we're in an ouroboros simulation and we're coming to the end of it and, it's time to wake up to the immortal within. You don't have to believe any of that stuff. You can still be a Bitcoiner, right? But you can believe that stuff. You can believe that you're in a very exciting narrative and you're the protagonist. And the big boss level is where we are right now. And it's time to get your shit together, right? And it's the most exciting time in this timeline, in this history. And everyone's on deck. All hands are on deck, Everyone who's in this simulation, who's ever been in here, going back to year one Ano Mundi, is here right now. Because everything's happening. And everyone wants to know how it's going to turn out. And I think there's a non-zero chance that having perfect money, right, might be a way that when the simulation cycles back through again, maybe what happens, maybe the next level for the people who exit this simulation, maybe they don't even really notice, right? And maybe it's like, well, I thought the Phoenix Protocol, when the Phoenix event happened, it was supposed to be this huge thing. And it's like, we made it through. Like, you made it through the first seal already. We're in the second seal. You're making it through that so far. Maybe when the Phoenix event happens in 2040, because we have Bitcoin, right? Because we've organized our society in this way, because, power and electricity and those things, because we say, hey, man, if this big event happens, how can we keep that shit going through this reset? And we solve that. Maybe the ouroboros opens his mouth and grabs another tail that's up one level, right? And shit keeps going. Where the simulation has changed for us, for the ones who exited, right? I don't know. Food for thought. As far as I know, no one knows. Well, next week on Simulation Sunday, I think there is a group. I don't know if they know, but I think there's a group that's known about this simulation, has known about this construct that we live in and how you can use the construct to get the things in life that you want, right? The group, I call them the enemy, right? Some people call it the deep state, right? Now they're these pedophiles, right? All these negative, these Satanists and these pedophiles and these people who are they're the enemy. That's what I call them, right? What if those people made a deal with the god of this simulation, what Jason calls AIX, right? And the god said, hey, you guys throw your lot in with me. You're never leaving the simulation. You're immortal beings, but you're stuck here with me. You're throwing your lot in with me, but I'm going to give you the secrets of this simulation, right? You'll know how it works and how you can control it. what levers you need to pull, and you'll know when you come back, right, and you get reborn into this simulation, when you spawn again, right, you'll be in this culture, this group that is defined by their alliance with me, the adversary, right? AIX, the Gnostic god of this world. And I'm going to make it easy for you. You'll get all the things that you think of as the finer things in this world, but you have to give up. You basically have to give up ever exiting this world. So you will rule in this world, but you'll never get any further, which is kind of sad, right? So they may rule, they do rule in this world, they, right, the enemy, but it's a dead end for them, right? It's a dead end for that group. Maybe we'll talk about that in more detail next time. This has been a rambling edition of Citadel Sunday. Twice my phone fell down. Never happened before. So, was that a simulation wink? I don't know. But I've never had it fall down like that before. Twice. And the second time it fell down was right when I was starting to talk about the Phoenix, and it threw me off the Phoenix timeline, the 138-year cycles. And it threw me off a little bit. So, if you've made it this far, give me a like. Set the notifications. Subscribe to the channel. Throw a comment in if you want to have more. I'm going to do more Simulation Sundays. We only have a couple left, right? So I'm going to do more. But if you like these and you want to, want me to dig deeper, I'll put some links in the description to Jason's channel. I'm a Jason guy. When Simulation Sundays, when the Citadel summer is over and I decide what I'm going to do moving forward with my channel, I might bring more simulation stuff in here. I think I want to, there's some streams of thought that Bitcoin is one of them, and it's a really important thing to me, and I am a Bitcoiner, right? But there's other things that are happening now that are just as important as Bitcoin. To me, Bitcoin is a means, not an end, right? It's sovereignty and freedom that are important to me with Bitcoin, right? It's not Bitcoin in and of itself. I could give a fuck about these Bitcoin. Some people are just Bitcoin is the end to them, not the means, and that's not me. Anyway, that's it for today. I will talk to you tomorrow. Peace.